Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. I'm Stu Whiffin. Joining me, or why are you looking so smug with yourself?
No, I'm not. I was about to start the intro myself. I was going to call you Sugar Stew O'Whiffin, but there you go. Go on. I'm Blake Harrison. This is the MMA Fan Podcast. Professional as ever. Here we go.
I mean, I'm a little bit excited to talk about Saturday night because, well, am I right in saying before we go? I mean, I thought the smugness was. Did you say that you thought Sugar might knock him out?
No, I think everyone realised that there was that potential because I think I mentioned on the podcast that Aljo does not do well when he's got people coming at him with the strikes. He sometimes does sort of like almost like turn away a little bit. I saw that in the Petty Arm fight, but I don't think I said, "Oh, Sugar's good." I expected Sterling to win because I thought, again, I didn't watch the Yarn fight. I thought I saw Yarn fight Sterling the second time, and I also rewatched Yarn versus O'Malley. And the way Yarn took down O'Malley, I was just like, well, Sterling's going to just be able to take him down. Surely he's got to avoid the big punch, obviously, but he couldn't. And that's not the smugness at all. There is no smugness. I don't know why you're just projecting smugness onto me, but there is no smugness.
Well, look, so I it was my daughter's 18th birthday party Saturday night. So as I've mentioned to you, I had a house full of pissed up 18-year-olds, which is quite testing for a 50-year-old guy.
There might be some people listening to this that are 18 and they're like, yeah, that sounds great. And we're like, no, mate.
Oh, mate, they would have had the best fucking time. But old Grandad Whiffin was stressing. But so Sunday morning.
Not the China, not the fine China.
But
those are our fancy guest towels. Leave those alone.
That is the sort of shit that's going through my head.
Clean up the sick, but not with those.
I'll tell you something that was quite funny, right? My daughter didn't want to have because we had like disco lights brought in and like a kind of a sound system and so it was all done off of my phone, right? Because she didn't want to have her phone connected to her playlist connected to the phone because she wanted to be taking pictures with her phone and do all that. So she sent me this playlist and said, "Can you play it off of your phone?" So I went, "Yeah, no worries." And so while I'm running around, because there's people like then just going upstairs, and I'm like, "Why is there people going upstairs? Like that ain't happening." Well, there's no toilet roll downstairs; it's all gone. So at one point, we had to go and get more toilet roll. I'm just thinking, oh, what's going on? Like, what is going on? Like, do these kids not shit before they come out? And but every time I'd go upstairs to like,
I love that as a generational difference. The kids these days, they don't take a shit before they go out to a party. They just do it there. It's crazy Gen Zs or whatever they are.
Yeah, any 18-year-olds listening, just have a poo in the morning. But every time I had to like leave the room to go and sort something out, I had my phone in my pocket. My Bluetooth wouldn't reach the speaker. So as I'd be trying to deal with one problem, someone would go, mate, the music stopped. And I was like, oh, shit. Then I'd have to sort of go back into the room so it could connect. It's a fucking nightmare, mate.
You must have looked like a tall, blonde Mr. Bean, just going back and forth.
That's exactly. A little angry Mr.
Get
Bean.
Toilet roll. Oh, the music's gone back in the kitchen. Oh.
What are they going upstairs? What's going on? Madness, mate, madness. So my Sunday morning involved taking apart a huge gazebo and tidying up my house after literally just having some kind of, it looked like sort of one of those sort of like fraternity films, like, you know, like American Pie or something like that. There was minus the red cups. It was just carnage. And so, I was sort of literally spent the day tidying the house. And I did watch the World Cup final and then got round to watching the UFC in the afternoon. What about you?
Did you avoid spoilers?
I did completely.
Oh, good man. Well done. Yeah, no, I had not quite the same, but like I had to avoid the spoilers as well because I was at a friend's wedding, good mate of mine who I actually train a bit of MMA with every now and again. It was a lovely wedding, but it was like festival themed. I'm not really a festival guy, but it was like festival themed. But we took the kids and everything. Everyone had like a lovely time. It was really well done. They did a cracking job of it. It was really lovely. But we decided that we would camp, which just
Right,
11 o'clock at
I'm
night.
going to interject here, right? You know I've got my camper van and I love a bit of outdoors living. You don't
Yeah.
strike me as that guy.
Nah, mate. I don't stay anywhere that's less than 6 stars. You know me.
If you're going to leave Harrison Towers, mate, it's got
mate,
to be special, isn't it? Not a 10.
it's got to have a spa attached to it at least. So yeah, so we're in this like bell tenty whatever thing, and yeah, it was just, and the thing is, it was fine, but we were in with the kids, and it was just so many drunk people like making noise. There was one moment where like we're all trying to sleep, probably a bit earlier than everyone else because obviously we had the kids. But she's like walking past our tent, drunk, being like, "Why have you called me now? I ordered my cab for midnight. It's 25 to, and you're calling me now," and all this kind of like having to go at the cab driver because the cab driver was just like, "I want to make sure I get to you on time, and I'm a bit lost because you're in this random field. So I'm trying to actually be good at my job and make sure I get to you." And she's just having to go at him for like calling her at that point. And then there was some other people that were like trying to put this bloke to bed. They were like, "You're too drunk." He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm just having a good time." It's like, "No, you need to go to bed." "I haven't upset anyone." I'm like, "Well, you kind of have, but let's just go to bed."
What someone should have said to him was, mate, jump in an Uber, head round to my mate Stu's house. It's going right off right now. Take some toilet roll, though.
But yeah, no. So it was like, so basically, what it was that we someone actually tried to open our tent at one point. This like we heard some people outside. Then our tent got, it was like one of those double zip tent. The first zip got opened, and then we heard them go, "Oh, is this actually the right tent?" And then someone else went, "I don't think so." And then some girl popped out of the tent next to ours and was like, "Oh, there you are." And she was like, "Oh yeah, you've got my phone and all this stuff," but she didn't zip the tent back down.
Rude.
So then I know, and so then my wife had to get up, but it's like 3 a.m. Get up, zip the tent back down, and she just turned to me and just went, "Camping is not for me." But you know, when like there's no humor in her voice at all. There was no humor in her tone. She was deadly serious, and I was just there. Like I was like, "Yeah, I feel you, babes. This is we're not doing this again. Next time, I'll just be on the Coke Zeros, and I will drive us home." But we had
Brilliant.
a lovely day. It was a really lovely wedding, but it was just the camping situation afterwards. We were like, "Oh," so then we were shattered. Drove home the next morning, and I think whilst the World Cup was on, we had that on an iPad. And then we were, I was watching I got the trump card because I'm quote unquote working by watching the UFC. So the World Cup was on like an iPad, and I got to watch the fights on the big screen. And I was spoiler free. I steered clear of all the spoilers. But that's that was the main thing. So yeah, shall we delve into what became and what may be for the next foreseeable, however many years, who knows, the Sugar Show?
Yes.
It has finally arrived. Your best friend, the quote unquote melt, has you've just called so many people melts. They're all going to become incredibly successful now. How many of Stu's melts can become champions?
If we see if we do see Kobe fight Leon and he gets the win.
His name's Colby. There's an L in there, but yeah, it shows how disrespectful you are to Kobe. Kobe.
It's not his name. Melt.
Kobe beef, yeah.
If he beats Leon, then maybe it's going to be like the old what do they call it? The thingy handshake from the Bake Off. Like if you get the
yes, yeah. If Stu calls you a melt on the podcast, you will become a champion one day.
There you go. People are going to want that. People are going to want that.
That's it. It's going to be a huge moment for people when they're being called a melt by Stu, some old man in Essex.
Well, I you know, as you mentioned when I asked about the smugness earlier, I think we all thought Aljo was going to, you know, wrestle him and grind him down. And obviously, we knew that with O'Malley's power, that there was always an opportunity for him to finish him. And boy, oh boy, I mean, I think the first round not a lot happened. I thought it was quite a
No.
boring first round.
Yeah, very even.
Yeah, very much like not even that much thrown. I think everybody, they were trying to sort of work out their range and stuff and suss each other out a little bit. O'Malley's footwork was really clever. He was moving so well that I think Aljo was struggling to kind of get to
him. He said
him.
that in a post-fight presser. Aljo said, I brought people in to kind of mirror some movement stuff, but his footwork was even better than I realised. It was really hard to track him down, he said.
Yeah, I think that was probably what made that first round pretty uninteresting. But fucking hell, second round. I mean, as far as that shot goes, it was perfect, wasn't it? I know lots of people have lined it up next to the Aldo McGregor shot, and it
very
obviously
similar.
Yeah, Aljo's obviously come in and committed, and O'Malley's just the counter right was just beautiful, and
it almost looked like he face planted him, didn't he? Again, a bit like the Aldo, and not as bad because obviously Aljo was still with it, and but it was great. And I think even Sean O'Malley said in the post-fight presser that that he'd been watching that McGregor Aldo finish a lot and sort of practicing that, and he kind of referenced how punching going backwards is not easy. Not a lot of people can do it well, but he's someone that can do it very, very well, and he proved it. Yeah, it was phenomenal because I mean, and it shows you just how much it's like a game of inches or millimeters at times, because you see it broken down in slow motion, and Sterling is not far off with that. I think it was like a long jab that he threw or something, or cross it, but it was really like not far off. Sugar just kind of leans. He's just like an inch away from his face, and then he uncorks that right hand, and it was just lethal. And then it goes to the ground and pound and stuff as well. There was some people, Merab Dvalishvili, obviously being a good teammate, that said it was an early stoppage. Do you think it was early?
No, not at all.
No, neither do I. I want you to talk on that. I'm just got to charge this.
he was gunning for Goddard. I see that what Mirab put, and I thought that was a bit unfair. I mean, if you watch it, I mean, obviously, so many of us have watched it back many times. When you watch that face plant, and how good that right hand was, I would have been interested to see, had he not swarmed him, like what sort of state Aljo would have been in, because it was a peach perfect shot. It was an absolute peach, and I think the ground and pound, I guess Aljo was flailing around a little bit, trying to kind of get his bearings, but what more? Should a referee wait for at that point? Like, I think he's just been face planted, and he's now just probably took another 6 or 7 strikes to the head.
And two of them, I think one or two
big
of them
ones
looked
when he
really
stood back
flush.
and he threw. It was
really flush. I mean, I don't think it was going to get any better. I think he saved him a bit extra brain damage. I mean, when you're looking at these kind of high level, this is a title fight, all that kind of stuff, then I can sort of understand the anguish of the defeated fighter going, that was my opportunity, or you've just, that was my belt, all these kind of things. But first and foremost, the referee has got to look after your safety. That is paramount. And yeah, I don't envisage a world in which Aljo survives that and is all right. Really, I think it was just delaying the inevitable, because I think Sugar was just, I'd say, raining down. Some of them were flush, big blows, almost punching down into a grounded opponent. I mean, I haven't got any problem with the stoppage at all. I loved the aftermath of it. It was very, it was very Sugar Sean. It was like equally expectant of the victory, but equally kind of being, I think, mindful, and I don't know. I think it shows the level of kind of intelligence with Sean O'Malley, where he was really taking it in. He was really, really taking in the moment. You see him shut his eyes. It wasn't an outpouring of emotion like we've seen with some other fighters. He wasn't sprinting around the cage like you got with Charles Oliveira a couple of years back. And it wasn't like Leon Edwards in tears or anything like that. It was an acceptance of like, yes, this is where I was supposed to be, but also this is such a big moment and I'm aware this is a big moment. I'm really going to take in all of it and just center myself and kind of really take this in. I mean, the fact that he kind of like walked outside, grabbed a beer off the Nelk boys, just had a few sips of that, and then like went back into the cage, as I say, just shut his eyes and let Dana put the belt around him and all that stuff and just take it. It just very composed, but very aware of the gravitas of the moment. And I really loved that. And I think sometimes we can get distracted by the face tattoos and the colorful hair and all those things. And, you know, the obsessions with like the Lamborghinis. And it's just never been my thing, all that kind of flashing your cash and all that stuff. But that's him. But what I think we can get distracted by that. But I think underneath it all is a guy that's very clever and very self-aware as well, and I think we've got something interesting in Sugar Sean going forward.
He's definitely self-aware because look at the superstar he's become. You know, I think maybe he fast-tracked to that title shot, and that's because it's the Sugar Show, and it is because of, you know, the hair, the tattoos, the whole look, the marketing that he's, you know, how he markets himself, and he's got that shot, and whether he deserved it or not, it doesn't matter. He's just beat the champ, and he's now the champ. And I thought it was quite interesting that the first fighter he called out, obviously he said, "Did Cheeto win tonight?" And then to hear, was it boring? And
probably.
It probably was. And he weren't far off the money. It wasn't the most exciting fight, I didn't think.
Yeah.
We'll get on to that. But yeah, I guess he wants to have that fight.
Well, he wants it in December. Cheeto has put out some tweets with like loads of bags of money, and also I think saying something about looking forward to fighting for the belt soon or something like that. You don't know how official that is, but it looks like if O'Malley wants it for December, then why would you not do that? I mean, it seems like what you were saying earlier about like, has his run to the belt been made a little bit easier? I think maybe it has. You know, outside of Petr Yan and now obviously Aljamain Sterling, everyone he had fought previously, I think, is no longer even in the UFC. It's not like they're out of the rankings or they're not in the UFC anymore. But pretty much everyone he's fought, I think. So Yan obviously has been on a terrible run recently, but I don't think that takes anything away. I think Jan's still a phenomenal fighter. And then this Aljo fight, I mean, yeah, he caught him with a big shot. But the UFC, I think, knew what they had. They knew they had a star in the making. So they did make his run a bit easier, but he's still got to do it. He's still got to beat Yan, who at the time was like the number 1 or number 2 guy in the world and had beaten, you know, the best of the best up until that point, I guess. And then he fights Aljo, who's the champ. That, yes, when you break down Aljo's record, you can find little holes in it and go, but TJ was injured and but this and but that. But I think ultimately he's beaten the champion. Some people saying this guy's the greatest bantamweight of all time in Aljamain Sterling. So the UFC know what they're doing. They released, which is something they don't do very often, his finish on YouTube, I believe, really quickly. And I think the UFC kind of promotional train, as it were, has really left the station now. And, you know, they're putting out his stuff on YouTube. They're probably going to try and push him as an individual. Maybe they try and get him on some talk shows and all that kind of stuff. You don't get many champions doing like the American kind of talk show circuit. Ronda did it a while ago. Conor obviously does it. Other than that, I don't know if Izzy has done stuff like that. I'm not sure, but it doesn't happen very often. And I wouldn't be surprised if Sean O'Malley ends up doing things where they're trying to push him to be a bit more of a crossover star. I don't think he's there yet. I think some people are being a bit premature, and some people I've listened to are speaking about Sean O'Malley as like, oh, he's the biggest thing since Conor. He might become that, but I still think he's got a little way to go before. I don't see him as bigger than Israel Adesanya at the moment. Do you?
No, not at all, not at all.
In
But
terms of his fame, I'm not talking about like what he's achieved in the octagon. I'm talking about his
I,
his
I
accessibility to a ridiculously wide fan
right
base.
that
Obviously,
that's
Connor's the top. Then I think you've got Ronda. I still don't think she's been beat. Maybe Brock Lesnar's actually in there as well because of the whole WWE stuff.
I
But
think
other than that, I think you've got Izzy, and then maybe Sugar is there at the moment under Izzy,
I,
but he could surpass a couple of them.
I think as a casual fan, you're going to be drawn to Sean O'Malley just because of how he looks, and
And his fight style.
and his fight style. He knocks people out, and
Yep.
so I think that's where the interest lies in him. Yeah, I think he's got, he if he's not big enough already, then he's going to be in the next, the next year or so. He's got definitely, he's on the path to becoming, the biggest star in the UFC.
I tell you one thing that has already really concerned me about it, though. Bantamweight is one of the best, if not the best division in the UFC. It's up there with the lightweights, and I think featherweight's underrated. But bantamweight is an absolutely killer division with multiple people that could be very legitimate title contenders. Merab, Umar Nurmagomedov in a bit. You got Henry Cejudo knocking about still, whatever you think of him. Corey Sandhagen. Like, there's plenty of people that you could say are worthy of a title shot. Sean O'Malley has already dropped the name Gervonta Davis in a boxing match, and he's only just won the belt. That concerns me because it makes me think, are we going to end up, say, O'Malley versus Cheeto in December? And if he wins that fight, is he then just hunting for Gervonta Davis in a boxing match? And we have a situation where all these fantastic contenders are just sort of twiddling their thumbs a bit because, or there's interim titles being thrown out there when O'Malley could fight, but he's chasing the big payday against the likes of Gervonta Davis. I'm not a fan of it. I hate that. You're an MMA fighter. I know the big bag is in boxing and all that stuff, but I don't want a division like bantamweight when it's this stacked to be held up, and for fighters that should be fighting for a belt going the way of, for example, a Tony Ferguson putting together huge win streaks, being someone that should easily fight for a belt. We talk about, O'Malley versus Sandhagen or O'Malley versus Umar or something like that for ages. And it just never happens for the belt because O'Malley's dragging his heels because he wants to fight a boxing fight and he doesn't fight for a year or something because he's chasing that. That would really disappoint me.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite early on to be having them kind of question, them kind of shout outs. I'm not interested in it. I'd be interested to know what the UFC make of stuff like that. I mean, I understand why he wants to fight Cheeto. That makes sense. I don't know if Cheeto deserves that shot right now.
Not over other people, he doesn't. But again, it makes business sense. So
yeah. I think straight away Sugar will think, I think I probably fare better against Cheeto than losing to Corey Sandhagen because I don't see him beating Corey Sandhagen. I think Sandhagen's way too well rounded and has got that range as well. And yeah, I don't think that's a fight that O'Malley's going to be rushing for. I think the Cheeto fight, on what we saw from Cheeto on Saturday, I didn't think he looked beatable, but I didn't think he looked exciting or that dangerous.
No.
But that said, I guess, we saw with the last Sandhagen fight, it wasn't that exciting. And maybe that's not done himself any favours in getting the title shot.
But on that note, if I can just interject with regards to Sandhagen, something really great happened at the press conference that I saw, and that was Dana White referencing Sandhagen. And he said that Sandhagen has been texting him and calling him quite often since the fight against Rob Font, which was boring, apologizing for the performance. And apparently Dana White's response, he said, has been, mate, don't worry about it. It doesn't take away from, your other exciting fights. We'll get you something soon where you'll be, you can put that fight kind of out of your mind. You're injured. I get it. Don't worry about it. So that was a good thing. That makes me think better things for Corey Sandhagen. But with the way this division could play out with O'Malley, you don't know. Everyone feels like it could take a little bit longer to get a title shot. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, sorry, I chat to interject and talk about that Sandhagen thing
Yeah,
because we've come
no.
out of this going, Dana's really annoyed with Sandhagen, but according to the press conference yesterday, he's quite understanding of the whole thing.
Oh, that's great. That's really good to know. That's a fight I'd like to see. O'Malley Sandhagen. That interests me way more than the rematch with Cheeto.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, well, look, should we move on, or did you want to talk about what potentially could be next for Sterling?
I think we should touch on it because he was talking about going up to 145. Then in the cage, he said, "Oh, well, if O'Malley's done that to me, what would Volk do to me?" And I think that's probably true. I think Sterling has made him...
What a brutally honest and brilliant thing to say. Like, to be that open.
Yeah, but I think it might not be the best thing that he said emotionally. Like, in terms of, like, I don't know. Will he regret saying that if an opportunity to fight someone in the top 5 at featherweight comes along, and then he's got to go, "Oh yeah, I'm ready for Volk. Give me Volk," and everyone's like, "Hang on a minute. Only a few months ago, you said Volk's going to smash you." So I just don't know. I think it's very honest. I appreciate it.
I like that vulnerability.
Also can see, yeah, I sort of do too, but I kind of feel like also it can be used against you. So it's a tricky game to get right. But now he's saying he doesn't know. He'd like the idea of having a rematch with O'Malley, but then he did say he was going to leave bantamweight to Merab.
I mean, Merab, we've not mentioned Merab in the mix for O'Malley. I mean,
O'Malley's not mentioning his name, is he?
It's weird, that, isn't it? Like,
well, I think there's a reason why. And don't get me wrong, I think Sandhagen is maybe a harder fight than Merab, because I think Merab is either going to be just right up in his face and get the wrestling exchanges and the clinch exchanges going and everything. But then I think Merab is such a worse striker than O'Malley that O'Malley can do what he did to Sterling and just time something and knock him out. I think that's very possible. Sandhagen, I think, is elite level on the feet, and he's shown recently that he's really well-rounded in terms of his wrestling as well. And I think that variety, that variation must be really difficult. If you know the guy's trying to take you down, you can try and time the strike or the knee, the uppercut, whatever it is. That's what Merab would be about. If you're against someone that can put your lights out with a flying knee, a spinning heel kick, or just take you down and put big pressure on you, that's much harder. So yeah, but interesting. But in terms of Sterling, if he were to go up to 145, if he were, who would you like to see him fight?
Arnold Allen.
I had Arnold's name down. Are you saying that just because you're an Arnold Allen fan and you'd like Arnold to get a big kind of name, or do you think that's a good stylistic fight?
I think it's a good stylistic fight. I think, the striking, I think Arnold probably hits a lot harder. But I think if it goes to the ground, I think it'd be a really good wrestling match. I do think Aljo's BJJ's better. And I think it could just be, we saw how well Arnold done against Max, and I think it's a great name. I don't know who else is in that division for Arnold that I'm in a rush to see him fight.
I'd like to see the Ortega fight. I'd like to see Arnold Allen versus Ortega.
My bad. Obviously, when we spoke about what's next for him, and we put it on the socials, everybody come in literally saying we'd like to see him fight Ortega. That is a great fight. I think it could potentially be a tougher fight than Aljo.
What, Ortega?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I think. Do you know what? I think Arnold Allen against anyone in that range, and I think welcoming a big name like Sterling up would be good as well. I just want to see Arnold Allen fight. I want to see him compete, get back in. I think he did well against Max. It just didn't quite work out. But I think if you're the UFC, you could give Sterling to Max because it's two really big names. Max Holloway ain't getting a title shot anytime soon. The general consensus is that the UFC aren't the biggest fans of Sterling. They wouldn't want him being a champion again. So why not feed him to Max Holloway? I mean, don't know. But then the problem is if he beats Max, then you're like, oh shit, now we have to give him a title shot.
Yeah. And if Max beats him, what does Max achieve?
Yeah, but what's Max achieving by fighting Korean Zombie, by fighting Arnold Allen? He's just cashing his checks and keeping himself in that number one spot, isn't he?
True.
So, and welcoming a champion from the lower division up is probably fine for him. I think Max is the kind of guy that until Volk loses the belt, he's just like, line him up, I'll knock him down. And as soon as Volk's not the champion anymore, I'm in. And I think that's the game Max is playing right now. If he stays at 135, Sterling, I think they could be a bit harsh on him again because they, that's just the way they are. They could give him Umar Nurmagomedov, and that could be something where if he won't have much choice. I don't think Sterling's going to be the kind of guy that can say no very often. So
Yeah.
I think they might feed him Umar Nurmagomedov because I think they want to give Umar a top guy to try and boost him. Although now that Sean's the champ, maybe they don't want to do that. Maybe we want to keep Umar as far back as possible.
I think that's very much the case.
Yeah, because the money is with Sean, isn't it?
Completely. Well, look, let's move on to the other title fight on the card, and that was Zhang versus Amanda Lemos. I mean, total domination by Wei Li, but I didn't find it particularly exciting.
First round was amazing. The first round was absolutely brilliant. The first round, Zhang was dominating, and then Lemos was getting beat up. Then she locked in that Darce choke that was looked really tight. Anyway, Zhang got out of it, beat her up, and then I think that the first round I thought was really exciting, was really, really good. And then it started to go sort of the way I predicted, which was. But then actually, I think there was more action than I anticipated.
There's the smugness. Yeah. Wonder when it was going to appear.
Well, no, do you know what? I'm going to give Zhang more credit because I thought Zhang might just do a bit of a lay and pray. I did think she'd get a finish in maybe late in the fourth round, but I thought she might do a bit of lay and pray sounds harsh. I just thought she'd be minimally active in order to maintain position and make Lemos work and tire herself out. Credit to Lemos for her toughness and her cardio. Well done for her. She survived longer than I thought she would. But Zhang actually put more offensive strikes together than I thought she would. And I think it was only out of Lemos's toughness that that fight saw the scorecards. The strike differential was something crazy. I haven't got the figures in front of me, but I think Zhang put out say 250 plus significant strikes, and she got about 30 back. The gap in the strike was huge, absolutely huge. I think Zhang's just fast becoming one of my favorite fighters.
She's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Even in the fight she lost against Rose, the second one, she was brilliant in that, and that could have been a bit of a coin flip for the judges.
100%.
Demolished Carla Esparza. She's got great wins over Joanna, great wins over Jessica Andrade. Phenomenal. I think she, as I say, fast becoming one of my favorite fighters, regardless of gender, on the whole roster. And she seems really nice as well. She seems like this really lovely person. So good on her. Absolutely brilliant. And even when in round 4, I gave to Lemos. Round 4, Zhang seemed to be on the feet a bit. And I was like, see, Lemos clearly has got you a little bit on the feet with the power and all that stuff. You've taken round 4 off. You're probably just going to go back to the takedown in round 5. And what does she do? She comes out, strikes for a bit, lands a big right hand and sits her down, saying, I can do that too. So Zhang's just really good everywhere. In terms of what's next for her, the UFC have mentioned going to China.
To fight Zhang.
Well, they haven't explicitly said that, but they said they are interested in going to China, and it would make all the sense in the world to make it Zhang Weili versus Yan Zhenan in China. I think that would be a huge thing. They're obviously they're in Singapore this weekend for Max Holloway, Korean Zombie. So I don't know whether they'll be going to Asia again anytime soon. I know obviously, there's lots of places in Asia to go to, but it's more, I don't know what the logistics of that are like to go over to. They don't go to Asia often. So I don't know what the logistics of that would be, but I think if they can get a card together for anywhere in Asia, really, but specifically if they can do it in China, then I think that would be huge business for the UFC to have Zhang Weili versus Yan Zhenan fighting on that card for the belt. I think that would be massive. And Yan Zhenan deserves the shot. So, yeah, I think that's the fight to make. Obviously, Tatiana Suarez is sort of really putting a mark on the strawweight division since coming back from injury. Great win over Andrade recently.
She was cage-side as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, she's there or thereabouts. I think, and she is a dangerous fighter. And her wrestling, and she's so big.
Undefeated.
If she fought against Zhang, God, that would be an interesting fight. And I think Zhang would have to really do her best to keep that one on the feet. That would be interesting. But there's contenders at strawweight. But I think Xiaonan versus Zhang is the fight I'd like to see next. And I think it makes sense for it to happen in Asia and ideally in China for the UFC's business. So we'll wait and see what goes on that. But then Zhang also has mentioned going up to 125. Would you favor Zhang against whoever wins out of Valentina and Grosso when they rematch?
I think the Grasso fight's very winnable.
Yeah.
I think she could. I mean, I've just pulled up the flyweight rankings.
I wonder if Valentina might be winnable as well. I love Valentina. I think she's phenomenal. I don't know. Zhang is just, that would be a great. Do you know what? I would love that. If I could map out Zhang's trajectory, I'd say fight Xiaonan in China, win that one because I think you'd be favored and you should win that maybe. Then, if Valentina beat Grasso in the rematch, Valentina versus Zhang, also keeping her away from Suarez, I think is a good idea for a little while. If I was in Zhang's corner, I'd be like, let's avoid Suarez for a little bit. Let's stick with that.
I think you're right, mate.
That would be great. Move up to 125. Taking on Valentina as well. That would be like, because I think Zhang at the moment is the pound for pound female fighter on the planet.
100%. 100%.
No, but I'm saying officially in the rankings.
Yeah,
I've not got it
yeah.
in front of me, but I think she is officially the pound for pound best female fighter on the planet. Valentina for a while was that, and in terms of historically has been at that level longer than Zhang, I would say. So seeing those two fight each other, I think would be a really phenomenal fight. I would love to watch that. I think the build up to that could be obviously very, very respectful. It wouldn't be any trash talk or anything like that, but I'd just be fascinated by it. These two kind of female warriors just going for it, the ones that have had like belts and legacy and all that kind of stuff.
Women's pound for pound at the moment, number one is Alexa Grasso.
Really?
Then Shevchenko, then Zhang.
Oh, that is interesting.
That's odd, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, do you know what? Maybe, yeah.
Very strange.
Well, I suppose Valentina was, and then Grasso beat her, so she has to be the number one now, does she?
I guess if that's how it works, then that would make sense because anyone else would look at female MMA and never question that Zhang's she's the baddest person on the planet in female MMA.
I don't know. Are we getting too hyped up because we love Zhang? Like, did she beat Esparza before that? Probably beat Joanna, but Joanna coming back from a bit of a layoff. I don't know. Maybe we got the recency bias and the rose tinted glasses on when it comes to Zhang. But I think of Zhang as the best female fighter on the planet right now.
I think Rogan as good as said that as well in the Octagon.
Maybe he did.
Post-fight.
Yeah, maybe he did.
Anyway, shall we move on to the fight? Because we're 45 minutes in and we've only spoke about two fights. And
I know.
And this is the fight.
I think that's a sign of a good card.
It is. And I think, looking down through the rest of the card, after this next fight, I don't think there was huge fireworks on the rest of the card. However, two-time former guest of the show, Ian Gary versus Neil Magny. Interesting to see all the back and forth in the lead up to this. Ian Gary, making a comment about Neil Magny, who I think maybe flippantly sort of said something that about the kind of whip up, he's had an ass whipping.
It's like he was saying, as a dad, I'm used to giving an ass whooping.
And then
blah, blah,
Gary
blah.
was like,
so I'm going to do that to Ian. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ian Gary then sort of said, "Well, his son's 3 years old," and I think he was just then cuts to Ian picking up his baby and saying, "Well, I'd never hurt you, and do you want Daddy to kick his ass?" And so I don't know if
and
Ian
he carried that narrative on at the press conferences, at everything, and he was really doubling down on the whole Magny's a scumbag, he beats his kid type thing.
And I don't, my experience of. And I'm just on as a fan. looking in on Neil Magny, I've always seen him to be quite a good sports person, and always come across like a really nice guy. So I don't know how much of that is there any truth in that, but I think Ian Garry wanted to grab that narrative and fuel himself with it, because we've never seen Ian Garry show any kind of animosity towards fighters. He's always been super friendly in like face-offs, but for some reason this one seemed to get under his skin. Holy shit, let's make sure that Ian Garry falls out of every fighter now, because what we saw in that fight was an absolute perfect display of mixed martial arts from Ian Garry. He absolutely dismantled and broke Neil Magny. Neil Magny had no answers to anything. And I think,
he did come in on a week's notice, but that was
no one does that to
Neil Magny anyway. Like,
you know what? And I made a note to say that it is easy for me to get overexcited because I'm a huge Ian Garry fan, but it is important that we do give that some attention. The fact that obviously he was meant to fight Jeff Neal, and he took that fight on a week's notice, but Neil Magny's cardio is never to be questioned, and I think that they mentioned that.
And his cardio wasn't compromised during the fight, as they said in the commentary.
It's not that
he's tired; he's just getting beaten up. I don't know. It was like the first leg kick just took him off his feet.
Yeah,
you're like, does Ian just kick that hard? Or they were mentioning Magny's small calves, and I did look down at my own legs and go, "Oh, I wouldn't want to take a kick then."
Well,
my tiny little calf muscles.
We did see Ian Garry out in Thailand training in the lead up to this as well, and so we saw some fantastic leg kicks, and if you're training at the highest level of Muay Thai, you're going to be kicking people's legs from underneath them, and we saw that, and we saw the pain that Magny was in, and his legs were compromised, and obviously he's tough as old boots, and he was trying to get through it, but the point, I think it was even in the last round when he kicked him down, and he was just literally screaming at him, "Get up, get up!" And because obviously Magny wanted him to, come into the ground. Knowing you think it was never going to happen. And the fact that Ian Garry was then sort of shouting at the ref, get him up. And then I think in that last round, the leg kicks were phenomenal. And he then just done a teep to the face. And I just thought, as he's standing up, then obviously then Ian Garry striking, it's pretty perfect. And again, I don't want to get overly excited and get over the top about how good Ian Garry looked, but he fucking did. He looked incredible. Now, there's other people in that division that he's not going to be able to do that too. But at this point in his career, 13-0, he mentioned it. We've all mentioned it. Magny's the gatekeeper. He absolutely destroyed him.
Yeah. And people don't do that to Neil Magny often.
No.
So I think there's a lot to be. We have to give Ian all the credit in the world. And what I think we're seeing is every time he steps into the cage, we're seeing improvements. He got dropped by was it Keenan Song a little while ago, and since then he's been defensively sound. I mean, we didn't see much of the Rodriguez fight because he nailed him with that head kick so quickly. And then in this fight, I think I might have even said this in the pre-show. I almost want Ian Garry to be taken longer, because had he just knocked out Neil Magny in the first 3 minutes of the fight, we'd go, oh, good for him. Yeah, we know his striking's good. Neil Magny did come in on a week's notice. We haven't necessarily learned much. But I think because this went the full 15 minutes, we've now learned Ian's cardio is absolutely fine with the 15-minute stuff. He can maintain a game plan, be incredibly patient and intelligent with his game plan as well. Realize what the weak spot is early and just go for it and go for it and go for it and go for it and win the fight quite ruthlessly and methodically. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to take away from this performance in a positive way. I mean, what was it, like a 30-24 on one of the scorecards? 10-8 rounds. That is crazy. You don't do that to Neil Magny. Ian Gary is special. He mentioned that there are some young crop of fighters coming through. He mentioned Shavkat and maybe Jack Della Maddalena. But I think that I think Ian is in a better place than Jack. I think Shavkat. Oh, that would be some fight. I don't know. I'd be nervous for Ian in that fight if that fight was ever
let's
made.
not make that happen anytime soon. There's
no,
two fighters
let's save that
on tears.
Yeah.
Let's not go early on that one. No one needs to see that just yet.
Before we get on what's next for Ian, there is a section of stuff that I've heard where people are like, should Ian be slightly criticized for not finishing Neil Magny? Because he was effectively fighting a one-legged man for maybe 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Should there be any criticism of him not getting a finish?
No, I don't think so. Like, it's Neil Magny. You know, he's fighting Neil Magny. This is not, and you could see that he switched stances, Magny, a few times, but he looks so uncomfortable fighting like that. And I don't know. I think part of me, I think Ian Gary was quite enjoying beating him up, and
yeah, I think he did.
And and don't get me wrong, you could see he was trying to finish him right at the end when he threw that front teep to the face and then started unloading. And then I think it then went to the ground, which I think probably
with like 30 seconds to go.
Was a saving grace for Magny, because I think if it would have stayed on the feet, perhaps in them last 30 seconds, Gary was really teeing off. Maybe he would have finished him. But yeah, you've got to really not like Ian Gary to criticise that performance, because I think that was pretty perfect. And what's this? He's fourth or fifth fight in the UFC? Fourth, maybe.
I think it's his fifth, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think it's his fifth.
Come on, the boy's doing well, and he's creating star quality as well. And obviously, it's great. That Boston's a great place for him to fight. It made so much sense for him to be on that card. He's talking about fighting in Dublin. He wants to do they're talking about the anniversary of the Conor fight. Should we do we make that happen?
I think he'll fight once before the end of the year.
Well, he said that,
December,
didn't he?
Or they want him to go to New York in November,
and he wants Wonder Boy.
Apparently Dana said Wonder Boy's turned the fight down already.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so fair play. I mean, what's there for Wonder Boy to get from? I mean, where's Ian Gary going to be ranked today? Do you reckon? Maybe we're recording this on a Monday, by the way. He'll be
ranked. Well, Magny's 11, so he could be ranked 11. I don't necessarily think he should leapfrog Vicente Luque, who is 10th, because Luque just had a win as well against RDA. So it's not fair for Luque to be punished necessarily. So I think maybe he should be ranked 11, but they might give him favor because he's so popular, because he's going to bring in a much bigger kind of audience than Vicente Luque. They might bump Luque down one and put Ian at top 10, just so that he can say he's a top 10 fighter.
They've not done them yet. Just had a look.
No, they usually do them on Tuesdays, I believe. So Thompson, I think Thompson was talking about maybe getting the Kamaru Usman fight, which is a fight that they both wanted to fight each other for a while in a respectful way. There's never been any animosity there, I don't think. But I think Usman likes that fight. I think Thompson likes that fight. But the UFC maybe will just go, no, we're good. We don't want to do that fight. You got to fight someone else behind you, maybe. I don't know. But the other thing is, just because Dana says that Thompson has said no, doesn't mean Thompson said no. Dana says a lot of stuff where he's trying to manipulate fighters into doing what he wants them to do. And it may very well be that they phoned up Thompson and said, New York, in November, MSG, you versus Ian Gary. And Thompson might have just gone, I've got a hand injury. I don't know when I'll be ready. Let me get back to you on that. And Dana's come out and said, he's turned the fight down. Like that, I do believe those types of conversations can happen. or he's just said, I won't be ready for New York. And Dana's like, no, Ian has to fight on the New York card. We've got a blueprint for this. And so he's fighting in the New York card. So he just says that Thompson's turned it down. And we may very well see an Instagram post, a tweet, or Thompson going on an interview soon saying, that's not what happened. Didn't turn it down. Just said I wouldn't be fit for New York. Or he doesn't want to fight in New York because New York also has a problem with the taxes. They do extra taxes, something like that. So a lot of fighters do get a bit annoyed about fighting in New York sometimes because it feels like they're paying extra tax. Even Ian Gary mentioned that he would rather fight in Vegas because he wants to avoid the taxes. But ultimately, I think he'll go wherever they want him to go and he'll be a company man.
You think
if he doesn't fight Thompson,
does the Jeff Neal fight still ever happen, or is that ship sailed now? I don't know.
Well, Ian Gary seems to think that he beat Jeff Neal already because I don't know whether this was a good thing to do or not, but he started selling T-shirts with Jeff Neal's mugshot on them because Jeff Neal must have been in trouble with the police years ago for whatever reason.
Do you know what? It's interesting to see how the fans responded because we did see a different Ian Gary. We did see, like a far more outspoken and louder and slightly more brash. And I think, you read the comments and we're fans of Ian Gary. He was so supportive to the podcast when we launched and, but, as fans watching it, you have to look at what other fans are seeing. And when you read the comments, there's lots of, oh God, like it's just Conor Mark II. And it's impossible for there not to be comparisons because brash, like confident, Irish fighters that are on absolute highlight reel finishes at the moment and absolute schoolings of like what he's just done with Magny. It's impossible not to see the correlation between the two fighters. I thought I seemed a little confused with the Magny thing. Like it just felt like I said at the beginning, he needed some sort of narrative and I think he, like I said, I don't really know what levels there are to what Magny said, whether it was just a flippant comment and,
I think it was probably a flippant comment, but again, you can't say that stuff. Ian's sort of right. Like you can't say something like that. And then the thing is, MMA is a sport where people seem to be able to say and do a lot of awful things and just sort of no one cares. Dana White comes out and says, this is the fight business. I don't care that Colby Covington has said this or that Connor's said that or whatever it is. It's the fight business. People say stuff. Get over it. That is the attitude. And Ian Gary, maybe being of a younger generation or whatever it is saying, no, I'm not going to let someone just come out with something like that and that be it. And I think what it means now is that fighters possibly will have to be a little bit more careful if they're going up against Ian Gary with what they say. Because if they say something that they thought, oh, well, everyone says stuff like this, it's not a problem. Ian will bring it up and he will drag it out and he will make a thing of it. Now, I've seen on Ian Gary's socials that because MMA Twitter can be the way that it is, it can be, I think, very anti a lot of the kind of good social movements that we've had over the years. He is getting a bit of hate. And I think Ian, as much as he's gained a lot of fans, has also gained a lot of people that want to see him lose now. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that, but this is a good thing for
this
fighters.
Is O'Malley. This is Conor McGregor.
Yeah. People have an emotional reaction to you, whether it's good or bad, it means money. They'll either pay to see you win or they'll pay to see you get knocked out, whatever it might be. And Ian is now cultivating that. There is a section of fans that are really into what Ian's doing. And then there's another section of fans that are disliking all this kind of stuff. And they didn't like the mugshot and they don't like the fact that he, in their opinion, has taken what Neil said purposefully out of context in order to run with some kind of narrative. We'll have to see how it goes and how it ends up. But I think in terms of from a business standpoint, Ian is ticking all the boxes. And I think the UFC are seeing that and they are going, yep, we are going to give you the push. And I think he'll fight once more this year. They want it to be in New York. Maybe that will happen. and then they might see him headline in Dublin in July of next year. That seems to be, I think, what the blueprint will be for this. And if he doesn't fight Wonder Boy in New York, which I think would be the best fight, then maybe Jeff Neal is there, or maybe Sean Brady. I don't think he'll get anyone above that in the rankings.
Well, this is interesting. The names that you've just mentioned there, right? So, and you're talking about, people are talking about Ian Gary. Love him or hate him, people are talking about him.
Yeah.
Who's talking about Sean Brady?
No.
Who's talking about Jeff Neal? I mean, I'm not being funny. And I mean, who's really talking about Bilal Muhammad? Like, I know Bilal, he's literally ranked right up there at number 3. But who's really
and should be getting a title shot? Let's be
100%.
Meritocracy. Bilal should be getting the shot, not Colby Covington. But
I think your casuals and the ones that are going to spend money on them pay-per-views are going to want to watch someone like Ian Gary fight and then get on that mic and start gobbing off and start playing up at press conferences. Then they're going to want watching. They're not talking about Bilal Muhammad, and they're certainly not talking about Sean Brady, Jeff Neal, Vincent Luque. I don't think these people are being spoken about the way that Ian Gary is. And I think he's wise enough to know that by playing up a little bit, and he's so good on his socials. He's constantly got that camera with him. He's playing up, but then the next thing, he's got his beautiful little baby in his hand, and he's, you know, and you can't help but just love the life that him and Layla and that have got, you know, as that nomadic lifestyle that we spoke about in the pre-show. Yep. You know, just traveling all over the world as their family, training everywhere. I think it's a really cool little way he's playing it, and it's clearly paying off. But you can play it as much as you want and be great on the socials. You can talk it, but he's fucking walking it as well. And that's the thing. Yep. Like, I think he's definitely, you know, him and Shavkat are the most exciting fighters in that division at the moment that are on the trajectory.
Yeah, I agree. I'd agree with that.
Look,
I've not got much to say about Blackshear and Bautista. I mean, Blackshear came in on 7 days' notice after just having a fight. He won last week by a twister submission as well. Then 7 days later, fights again, replacing Cody Garbrandt. Got tired, but I think understandably so, given the circumstances of the fight. But Bautista looks good. He's on a 5-fight win streak now. Possibly could get a ranked opponent next. But I've not really got anything to say about the fight. Have you?
No, not really. To be honest, like I think I was a little bit disappointed in the fight that we're about to talk about. And then this didn't really help. And then thankfully, maybe that's what made the Gary Magny fight even better. The fact that it followed a couple of pretty dull fights. And I find it really hard because I'm a big fan of Marlon Vera. And I'm a fan of Pedro Munoz as well. And what we saw was, you know, it was a pretty okay fight, but it just didn't really set the world on fire. And I think fans love Cheeto as well. And I think fans know that he starts slow and then comes into his own. And that's pretty much what happened. I thought Munoz took the first round. But I don't think the judges saw it that way. I can't remember what the score
they gave it 30-27 to Cheeto. I thought round 1 could have gone either way. I thought round 2 could have sort of gone either way, but maybe I was leaning Munoz in round 2.
Yeah.
And then round 3 was the clearest round of them all, and he won round 3 clearly. Cheeto did. So I've got no problem with Cheeto walking away the winner of that fight. But I think 30-27, not 100% sure of that. But I can understand it because I found round 1 and round 2 very, very close.
Yeah. And not that exciting. It was like Munoz was just pushing forward, throwing. It looked like Munoz didn't have the power to bother Vera. No. Vera seemed to, I mean, and also Cheeto walked out of there unscathed. And Cheeto's jab, he's pretty special. And he started to kind of find his range in the second round, and then by the third round, he was making a bit of a mess of Munoz's nose, and he looked like he was really establishing that sort of control of range and of the fight. But ultimately, it wasn't that exciting. But then that's, I guess, 2 highly skilled fighters that didn't really want to rock and roll on the floor. They wanted to keep it on the feet, and it was just a high level striking match. But there weren't huge fireworks, which is a shame.
Yeah, I agree. But it looks like he's getting a title shot next out of it. And I think the build up between Cheeto and Sugar Sean could actually be really fun. And I think that could be a fun build up to a fight. It was lovely to see Weidman get back in the cage, but Jesus, it looks like he's fucked up his other leg now. Dana White in the press conference was saying he'd like to see Chris Weidman retire. Do you concur with El Presidente, Dana White?
Yeah, I thought it was it was really weird. I was watching interviews and I was watching the embeddeds, and I know obviously it's his camp, but you know they were all saying like, you know, he is looking absolutely terrifying. He did not look terrifying on Saturday night. The leg kicks, he had no answer for him, and he was debilitated by the end of that fight. I mean, he's always going to have that on his record that he took that strap from Anderson Silva in spectacular fashion. And yeah, I think he's set himself, you know, as in the history of UFC. I don't know what's left for him.
I don't think he's 39 years old. It looks like he's going to have surgery on the other leg now because of the beating he took from Tavares.
Third, you know, he's just lost to Uriah Hall, obviously with that horrific leg break.
Yeah.
But to be honest, the record before that was very checkered. You know, he's got that.
And it was a lot of knockouts as well. So like, I'm almost quite pleased that it was more his leg that took a battering than his head, because he suffered some bad knockouts on that run. I think I'd like to see him hang him up. I think Weidman seems like a great character. He seems like a really nice guy. He's achieved a hell of a lot. I think this is it now, and I think that's okay. Rodriguez versus Tulinian, some horrific ground and pound elbows that knocked Tulinian out. I think he might have already been knocked out before the second one was landed there. So Greg Rodriguez with the win. Then you had the Ultimate Fighter stuff. Holobar versus Hubbard. Kurt Holobar became the lightweight Ultimate Fighter winner by triangle choke. But then we had shades of Bonner Griffin. Did you watch the prelims? Did you watch Katona versus Gibson?
Yeah.
That was a great fight.
Yeah, Katona's quite a divisive character, isn't he? And
is he? What's the Katona's deal then? I don't know a huge, other than he trains at SBG. I don't know a huge about.
I've not been an avid viewer of the Ultimate Fighter this series. I know, you know,
I checked out after about episode 4, to be honest.
So me and you both, and I think he kind of sort of set himself aside from everybody in that house. I don't think people liked him. He's got a very strange way about him, and only from what you see in the edit, you know. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy fight. Enjoyed it. I'll be interested to see what he does back in the UFC. Yeah, I haven't really got a lot more to say about that, to be honest, mate. What did you make of it?
No, I just thought it was a fun fight. Congrats to Brad Katona. I mean, it was one of those ones where what I've heard is that both Katona and Gibson will both be getting contracts, and I think that's the way to do it. You know, when you put on a fight like that in the final of the Ultimate Fighter, both these guys should be getting a contract. Congrats to both of them. They put on a great performance, and Katona came out on top. Other than that, Natalia Silva versus Andrea Lee kind of went a way that I thought it would. I kind of thought Silva might finish her, actually. But Silva's got that great Taekwondo style. She's very, very fast, good striker. And Andrea Lee didn't have too many answers for her. It was a 30-27 performance. Silva will be ranked in the flyweight division. She'll be like 13th or 14th in the women's flyweight division. So congrats to her. There was a couple of other fights on the card, but I don't know that there's anything that anyone really cares too much about, if that's not too harsh.
No, not at all. I think there was too much exciting stuff to cover on this show, and like I say, we're over the hours mark now. So yeah, I don't think anybody's desperate to talk about this. You know, the Petrosky's decision win over Meerschaert. I thought that was pretty average at best, and yeah, and there was a few other fights on there, and you know, I think maybe we just sign off talking about the fact that we've got a very exciting new champ now. And it looks like the melt, you know, is going to probably be the face of the UFC now for a while, because he's got some star quality, that boy.
Absolutely. And one of the other things we haven't mentioned, and we'll do it just very, very briefly, is we are partnered with GamCare. If you are someone struggling with gambling addictions, or if you're a friend or a family member of someone struggling with gambling, then please check out GamCare. Stu, could you pull up the number on the website, please? GamCare can offer you free counseling sessions, whether you are the friend or family member of someone that's struggling, or whether you are struggling yourself. They have a 24/7 helpline. And if you feel nervous about talking to anyone, if you feel nervous about talking on the phone to someone, they have one of those like instant messaging little boxes that you can talk to someone on as well. So GamCare do some really phenomenal work with people that are struggling with gambling. Stu, can you give us the website and the number, please?
Absolutely. So if you're on the Tinterweb, it is gamcare.org.uk, and as Blake said, you get your little pop-up as soon as you come on there that just says talk to someone, so you can do that completely anonymously. And to stress it again, it's totally free, this service. And if you want to call them, it's 0808 8020 133. That's 0808 8020 133. It's gamcare.org.uk.
Love the miming of the phone there. That was
some people are watching this on YouTube.
They've probably switched off now, to be fair, but they got a very wonderful moment of Stu miming a telephone multiple times during reading that number out.
And lastly, a big love to George Hardwick, who come up a little bit short in Dana White's Contender Series this week, and looking forward to see what comes next for George. Obviously, he's an absolute beast, and just had a bit of a tough night in the office, and so looking forward to seeing him back defending his belt in Cage Warriors soon. And also, we've just dropped an episode with the Welsh gangster Oban Elliott. That's out now, and we spoke to Oban ahead of his fight this week in Dana White's Contender Series. So go watch the wonderful Oban have his shot to get in the UFC this week on Dana White's Contender Series.
Yes, and on that note, I believe I was an idiot and was constantly saying that his fight's on the 28th of August, maybe, during our episode. It's not. It's, well, if we get this out today, it'll be tomorrow. It's Tuesday, the 22nd, not the 28th. So if you listen to me stupidly say the 28th, it's not. It's the 22nd. So we're recording this on Monday. So as of right now, it's going to be out tomorrow. But if you're listening to this on Tuesday, it's tonight. Oban Elliott, the Welsh gangster, fighting Kike Brito for his chance to achieve his UFC dream. So yeah, please support the Welsh gangster. Fingers crossed he can get it done. And yeah, obviously commiserations to George Hardwick, who I'm sure will be back very, very soon, smashing people in the liver and finding his way back to the UFC if that's what he wants to do. And we've also got a phenomenal episode that we've been talking about for a while. It will be out soon. It was recorded in person. The camera quality is phenomenal. It's going to be great. Bruce Buffer, the iconic voice of the Octagon, is on the show. Yeah, if you haven't checked out our YouTube yet, that is one to check out on YouTube. It will look great. It's all edited and everything. Yeah, I think that is a good one to check out on YouTube. We haven't dropped it yet. I'm not sure exactly when it will come out. Maybe.
Yeah, do you know what, mate? Why don't you stop talking about dates? On behalf of the MMA Fan Podcast, I really want to apologise for him saying it was the 28th and not the 22nd. Honestly, have a word with yourself, Blake. Absolute idiot, mate.